beautiful people, and welcome to Safe Space. I go by the name of Katlagotulwana Molida, and I am here with Jabu Oa Afrika. He is a former governor of a men's organization called SAMEC. He is a senior video journalist of SABC, and he is a multiple award-winning video journalist. Imagine, guys. Man, basically. How are you doing?
I'm doing fine, and how are you?
I'm wonderful. Last time when we spoke about a woman maturing faster than men, and the fact that women are mostly more focused. Like a 25-year-old, if you compare a 25-year-old woman to a 25-year-old man, you would see the difference in how they are thinking and their life perspective. Why is it so that men are deemed to be more playful around their ages of maybe from 25 to 30, and women are deemed more focused? Why is it that men bring stability, not men, but women bring stability into a woman's life?
I think it's all boils down to socialization.
Okay.
When we are born, when you were young,
okay,
your parents would buy you dolls.
Yes.
So you play with dolls. So therefore, when you start playing with dolls, you are already being taught responsibility because you have to care for it, for a doll. Then you'd find boys. They would be bought guns, cars, things that they do not necessarily really care about. And boys are a bit abrasive, so their toys would be lost, damaged, because they don't take care of them. So that's the process of socialization that starts from home. It is how our society has engineered to put more responsibility, more nurturing to women than it would be to boys. And that's why you see as they grow, boys tend to be not being more focused, they are more playful than their female counterparts. And that's the reason why we would see there is a gap of maturity. But as they progress and grow, that gap is closed. Because at one point
they got to grow up.
They have to grow up.
Yeah, and sometimes I've seen how even the society makes it a norm for, like, for example, if a man is married, right? A man is married, he brings a woman home, right? Then the next thing, he spends more time with his friends than at home.
One thing that we have to take into cognizance is that men are not homogeneous. That means you would have a man from a particular family different from the family next door. So that we are not the same. So sometimes it's easy to generalize. But if we generalize, you need to look into how do we come to formulate that. So it is easy to say that men are the same, but men are not.
Yeah, true.
And from the perspective from cultural differences to race differences, because it is equally important that also parents that bring up these children are bringing their children to a point where the children will be more responsible and more mature. But what we see most of the time, going back to the example that I've given you, you would find out that when you start taking care of a baby as a young girl, you already inculcating that there is a father to this child. And this would be an imaginary father. Now, with a young boy, a boy or any other person who gets married, they are not seasoned in marriage. Both partners are not seasoned in marriage, but they have had some degree of preparation. So they start off with no experience and they're growing in experience. The other thing is that you have diverse cultural background where people will start dating for a long period of time before they get married. But the problem that we do start with is that once we start dating or in courtship, we will find out that we don't take the relationship serious as it's supposed to be. And only in marriage we bring other expectation, or because now you already had the wrong foundation to begin with. It should have been, once you are in courtship, you are dating, you know what you are doing. You're not just test driving a car that you would leave, or a car from a driving school that you would always test drive to harness your skill, then you leave.
Yeah.
So it is also a developmental issue where you would find men who are physically looking like men, but they're still boys inside.
Yes. And does it also go back to the father figure in a man's life?
It is important to have father figures, a present father figure, not just only a man who's physically present or who pays money. A father figure ushers in a new role in a boy's life, especially when they hit puberty.
Yes.
Once they hit puberty and the man is there, they are there to guide their sons on the right path. But you would find out in most of our society, where are the fathers?
True. A lot of fathers, yes.
Take church, for example. You'd find out the demography in the church, you'd find out there are more women than men.
Yes, that's
then
very
you
true.
ask, where is the leadership? Because now, who are the people responsible in ushering these young boys into manhood?
Sure.
So we have a gap where we do not have men who are seasoned, men who understand life, who are willing to impart that. But you also have to remember what we have learned from Genesis chapter 3. The Bible says that when God was passing judgment to the woman and the snake, he said, I will put enmity between your seed. Didn't talk about the womb.
Yes.
He spoke about the seed.
Yeah.
So generally you'd find out that it is boys who are in the street if they have left home. They are the ones that are abusing drugs more than any other person. And you'd find that few women are doing the same things as boys do.
Sure.
So spiritually there is a warfare towards menfolk.
Yes.
And hence you don't find enough men in church. You don't find enough men in society who are the role figures. Because at the end of the day we need to be spiritually aware and mature to handle such things.
Yes. What is the spiritual implication with regards to men?
When you have a society with less men present, you have a society that goes haywire.
That cannot lead. Because a man is called to be a head.
A man is called to be a head, but in the context that you understand what the head is supposed to do. But when you have a man who's not matured enough to be the head, you find him basically on trial. Because he has no reference point, because there are not enough father figures. He's speaking from that man that he has seen there and that man that he has seen there. That's a sum total of different men, not one man. And one of the things that happens when a young man is faced with that he finds that he himself is not perfect.
Sure.
And he then puts in self-doubt because he has never seen a man's day. And that's why you see men play.
Sure.
Because we have played with our toys for so long. When we play with our toys, we go into our caves.
Sure. That's why they have a lot of men caves.
That's why we go to our caves for comfort. Because it's something that we have learned as young kids. That if you want to have your own comfort, have your own cave, have your own space. And the cave, basically, it's my protection area. And it's exclusive to one man. Because one man cannot necessarily allow another man to come to their cave.
Sure. So basically it's their trauma response.
It's how they cope to challenges in life.
Yeah, no, that's really, really deep. And when it comes to men, what is it? Because I've come to realize that there's something about their friends that they cannot get with their companions. Like you were talking about the men's cave. Like for example, I asked you that question regarding a man will bring a woman home but spend most of his time outside. So now the question is, what is it that he is finding outside that he cannot find inside? Inside meaning in his home, in his wife, or in his... What is it that is different from the outside then? Or is women judgmental, or we quite don't understand them?
Men and women are not wired the same.
Yes, we are emotional.
Women think in circles. men think in straight lines. When I mean men things, go to a mall, even right now.
Yeah.
You'd find that most men would be sitting in benches instead of going around in malls.
That's very true. Yes.
Right? You are looking for the best discount on one item that you are buying, but you are willing to invest going around to save 5 rand. Because men think in straight line, right? They want to hit the tar, they go to one store, they know what they want, even if the sum total of what they bought would be more than when a woman goes out shopping and she then tries to get the best things. When it comes to relationship, women and men connect because they are opposite and they attract one another. Right? A woman gives a man some degree of comfort and the man gets that the same complementary feelings in a relationship. Remember, this is ingrained in how we were brought up. How many boys have seen their fathers staying at home?
Sure.
So now if their fathers are out there at the shabin, at the tavern, at a shop, at a sport complex, they are then socialized to be drawn to these things.
Sure.
And when you look at the relationship between men, you have to look at the relationship between David and Jonathan in the Bible.
Okay.
You would find out these were basically not brothers, but they were brought in because they were living or brought up in the same house.
Yes.
And the Bible will tell you that they expose each other nakedness, where they actually undress. But the intimacy that it is between men and the intimacy between a man and a woman is different. It boils down to brotherhood, it boils down to camaraderie, because we all face the same challenges in life. If I have a partner or my wife and I have differences with, I can't ventilate my frustration with her. That I need a companion who would also listen to me. But if you're talking about young boys who are still not matured, it's a different ball game altogether. Because with them, they have not honed in to be at home, spending time with their family. That comes through time, or it never comes at all. It's how we are socialized, and most importantly, it is the choices that a man would have to make.
Yes.
Because if you go around going around with friends, I will take an example from the Bible. Jesus had 12 disciples. Out of the 12 disciples, he had 3 that he trusted.
True.
Out of the 3 that he trusted, he had 1 that he called a friend. So you would have your friends at different levels. Those are differences of intimacy that you have with these people. And that's why intimacy is into me, you see.
So I guess the problem boils down to the fact that they do not see a lot of men staying at home. That's why the first thing that comes to mind is if there's a disagreement at home, they decide to go out.
They do not see a lot of men at home, and most of the time as friends we live a shallow life. You would find a group of friends would be stunned if their friend commits suicide and the reasons behind, and they would say, I didn't know. Even though they are friends, there isn't a deeper meaning or level of communication.
Is it because that men were brought up to be like closed to not, because a lot of men are struggling with speaking out, especially with matters relating to suicide, that they will be told that they are weak. Is that the reason why that they do not voice out?
It's because men are raised to be strong. You go to every nation, you would find standard houses, you'd find skyscrapers. All these houses are built by men.
Sure.
And there's a level of risk with putting up all these things. And a man, because you are socialized not to cry, because tigers do not cry, You go out there in the world with the false bravado that you can cope. And it is the same false bravado that puts men at peril. And hence you'd find out, even though we have friends, we are not too intimate with
our friends. Because I was reading this other article, it said that in 2019, 13,000 people committed suicide, and 10,000 of them were men. And the least, the 2,000 and something, it was women. And that's a lot.
That's a lot.
And especially for men that usually associate themselves with other men and they are always outside. You would think that whenever they meet, they speak about these matters.
Okay. Have you ever been at pay points at a mall? If you go, sometimes they would funnel you into an aisle. And when they funnel you into this aisle, you'd find out there are a number of magazines that are displayed.
Yes.
How many magazines are talking to men?
No,
as compared to magazines talking to women.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And you'd find out women are always talking. They are always expressing themselves.
Yes.
You take into cognizance, you go to any social gathering where women are cooking together. And you know what they talk about. They talk about life.
Definitely.
When you look at men, the fewer men that you would have, they are there talking about their conquest, their bravado. It's not about the intimacy.
Yes.
Then you'd find out the way we socialize ourselves is that women talk, men don't. And that is why you'd find that men are dying species inside. You'd find the most critical point in a man's life is in his 35-year-olds to your 45-year-olds. They hit midlife crisis, because now when the tire hits the Mac, you realize that what you thought you would achieve as a man, sometimes we fall short.
Sure.
And it's reconciling with the fact that we have fallen short, that we are unable to cope with the pressures of life. Because in every man's challenge, there are three factors. These factors is money, power, and the petticoat.
What's the petticoat? Yes.
Men aspire to be powerful men, and that's why you read about men talking about their bravado. So the power is very important. That's why you find men as CEOs, men as leaders, because those roles give them power in society. Secondly, we also want to be able to take care of our needs, to take care of our families, and in order to do that, we need a commodity to do that. It's money.
Sure.
And that's why you'd find most men are the ones who are always going out, trying to put bread on the table. So money becomes a key. But also, power and money can be an extension of men, where men does not show who he is, but the status that he carries in society, the money that he has, it's an extension of who he is. You take these two, and a man is in trouble.
Sure.
The petticoat, it's an old term for woman's garment. So I'm referring to a woman. All men want stable families, they want a woman. But if a man is not matured enough, the same woman that they are going after would be the same woman who would eventually hurt him. And he would develop a defense mechanism to intimacy. And one of the foundation is that a man's relationship with his mother is a dress rehearsal for his future relationship with his wife.
I've heard a saying that if a man does not have a relationship with his mother, run. Is it true?
That's subjective. That's very subjective.
Okay.
Because not all of us, basically when we're talking about mother, we need to understand who do we refer to. A mother can be a biological mother. A mother could be a mother figure who then bestows maternal instinct. It is that relationship where the young boy then learns how to treat a woman, right? Devoid of that, he has no reference point.
So, do we not have enough men's organization to have a conversation regarding such matters? Like, is there not enough voices for men to come out of their shell and talk about what they're struggling with? Because they're dying in the inside.
Women would love men to talk.
Definitely.
But men are not wired that way. We don't have enough men's organization. And men's organization do not get enough support, because in order to get support today, firstly from government, you have your government programs looking at victim empowerment program, where you have gender-based violence.
Sure.
And the victim here is defined mostly as women and children. Whereas a man is a victim.
Sure.
Because we are a byproduct of our own society. If a man learns that it's okay to hit a woman, aren't we grooming that young boy to do the same?
True, we are.
So our society is so used to violence that if you watch the news, if you call them hardcore news, hardcore news, then you would have stories full of violence. And that's newsworthy. If you have good feel stories, they call them soft stories. They are your tail enders, maybe after sport or towards sport, where the hardcore news has been done with. So the society feed on controversy. Now, as it is, you'd find out men's organization then apply for funding to serve a purpose, to be protectors of women and not necessarily to be nurturers of themselves. Because there's no funding that would go for a men's organization for what they stand for. Because if you look at how psychology has defined masculinity, you'd find out if you're dealing with gender-based violence, there will be talk of toxic masculinity. But masculinity, it is what makes a man to be man. Because if a man is more feminine, then we have a different definition.
Yes. So, what's the solution in terms of men? How can we get men to speak, and how can we get men to feel comfortable in their homes and to allow themselves to be vulnerable?
For me to be vulnerable in my own house, I have to be comfortable with the partner that I'm with, the one that I've decided to devote my life and spend the rest of my life with that person. That person, we share a different level of intimacy than any other man or any other woman outside there. It is a person that I'm comfortable with my weakness, that she could be able to embrace my weakness without judgment. So in order to get men themselves to speak, we need to look at how the economy is driving men out of their household. We find out the majority of men go to hubs, they go to Johannesburg, they go to Rustenburg for the mines, and the women are socialized to stay behind and raise the children. The way that our economy is structured in a way that is not supporting a family unit. So if we could have men bringing the bread in places where they live, we will have stronger families. And for them to talk, we would then have to open up spaces and have men who are seasoned, who are willing to talk to them, and not projecting themselves as if they're saints, and saying that I am man and I had my flaws. And it only takes a man with a degree of maturity to be able to expose himself for his brother's sake and call himself thy brother's keeper.
Yeah, no, definitely. Those spaces are really needed, because a lot of men are going through phases in their lives. There's a woman that I met up with, I think 2 months ago, and she was literally telling me how his son is actually going through the most, and she doesn't even know how to help her. She has tried therapy, she has tried everything, but still there's just a disconnection between him and her. And she was like, I really do not know what to do, and I hope that in one of these days you will speak about men and what is troubling them. And I thought you were the perfect person to actually speak on this, because
one of the other things that we need to understand that it's good for women not to perceive themselves as superwomen, and they should know that they have their own limitations too when it comes to life, not just only for the boy child but also for the girl child.
Sure.
If we look at the boy child, a woman can raise a boy child to a certain level, but there's a disconnect when that boy reaches that certain level, because the woman has no reference point on how a man copes at that level.
Yes.
And that's why we need fathers. And it is also important that women realize their power, that they don't grow up poisoning the mind of a young boy because the father left.
Sure.
The father did not leave because they were leaving their children. Most of the time they are leaving their situation. And it's also not good to have mentality where a man lays his head, that's his home. Then you have a lot of men being good step parents to children who are not of their own, and being bad parents to their own biological offspring. Because now there is this toxic relationship between two lovers who are no longer together. Yes. And there is bitterness. The reality is, when two elephants fight, it is the grass that suffers. So the power of women that they do have, especially if they have a boy child, is to nurture the boy child so that the boy child would still have a relationship with his father. It is also not just only about the boy child, because similarly as I have said about a boy child and his mother, a girl child's relationship with his father is also a dress rehearsal. So both kids need both parents. So when we are bitter with one another because things do not work out, let us not let the kids to be the pawn in our game.
But how do you address such matters?
It takes two to tango. It will take both women and men to deal with these issues. In most of the time, with men or fathers that I've spoken to that have lost their relationship, they end up losing their children. Our courts in its interpretation of the law, when you see a child is still a toddler, the courts tend to be more lenient to the nurturing parent.
Oh, yes.
That way we are not providing men space to graduate and do what they're supposed to do as fathers.
That's very true. That's very true. Mothers are usually the ones that win the custody of a child, and yet they continue to poison their children's minds in terms of hating the father. And that's why when they grow up, they become like this angry person, and they don't know how to deal with it.
A mother's relationship, when I referred it as women having power, it is a relationship that could also unite nations.
Sure.
Because behind any great man, there is a woman. For a relationship to ensue and develop, a woman has to say yes.
Sure.
For a marriage to happen, there is somebody who proposes, and most of the time the proposal is from a man, and it is for the woman to open that door for that relationship. That's the power that women have. But when you have great power, you also have great responsibilities. Not only to yourself, but also for your generations to come.
No, I really wish a lot of men can become vulnerable, and it's going to take a whole lot of years for them to learn that, because they were wired not to speak up. They're wired to just be irrelevant to their emotions, and that's something that is really painful to see, and especially to the younger generation, in which they end up going to taverns, clubs, and prostitutes for them to release whatever that they are dealing with.
Remember, trust is earned, and often is given up until it's betrayed. And once betrayed, we start being on guard in life, because we don't want to hurt again. It cuts both ways.
I feel like with men, if you betray them once, once beaten, twice shy, they never go back. We women always have that urge to always go back and fix or try to work things out, but a man finds it difficult.
I would take you to my first statement. Men are not homogeneous. We can't say all bank drivers are taxi drivers. Because take the taxi driver outside the taxi, they drive differently. So all I'm trying to say, in order for men to open up, they have to be in a comfortable environment, and that environment is created by both parties involved.
Sure. Now, that was a really wonderful conversation between me, Katlagotulana, and Jabu Oa Afrika. Wow, I'm actually amazed. I got to learn that actually the background of a man impacts his entire livelihood. Like, you can't just raise a child just like that and expect him to be a perfect person when they grow up. And I went to therapy, and they told me that the first I think from 7 years to 10 years, or somewhere between those ages, those ranges, that's where most of how you deal with life and everything it's impacted. That's where
the development starts from when you are born up until the age of 7.
Yeah.
That's when your brain grows.
Yeah.
Your capacity to understand things in life. And I truly pray that South Africans will come to the realization that both men and women need one another to develop and strengthen families.
You had that. South Africa, woman, man, please do the right thing and support one another to make sure that these children grow up in the safest environment that will enable them to be vulnerable and to be better men and women. And from me, Katlagotulana and Jabu Oa Afrika, we are out.
Thank you.